Welcome to the show that is Automobilista 2 version 1.3. Already we're seeing some weird issues in the GUI here. My car's name isn't listed, and neither is a lot of other cars. This is just a private multi-class session at Bathurst with some friends from the JG1 Flight Sim Squadron. A mix of AI drivers with 6 humans on the grid in various classes of car. We are on the pole in a Daytona prototype. Hoping for a better impression of this game after my race at Adelaide in the Volkswagen Virtus was not so great. I do not have player tags up, but that is Ted Howe in front of me in the P1. I believe it's a Jannetta. I'm a bit quicker than him on the straightaways, but I think he can hang with me in the corners. AI set to 70%, so we are definitely going to walk away from them, but this was just a private online race to kind of feel out the game. Mess around in practice, learn how all the different menus work, get a couple guys acclimatized to the game as they've just recently purchased it. The one thing AMS2 really has going for it, similar to P-Cars 2, is that it's really easy to set up an online server, fill it with bots, and just mess around with friends. Already some issues behind us. An AI car as well as a P1 car have smashed into the wall. They couldn't really handle how narrow Sector 1 is at Bathurst, so that'll take them out of contention and leave just myself and Ted Howe fighting for the overall win, and some of our friends are running GT3 and GTE cars. It's only a 25-minute race, but we've used, I believe, 60 times timescale, so we'll get a full day-night cycle in and get to see this game visually at its best. Unlike Adelaide, Bathurst has proper lighting, and the Madness engine lends itself, as I mentioned in my other video, quite well to a full day-night cycle. Sunrise and sunset looks awesome, the different times of day look awesome, the different weather effects look awesome. It's one of the things this engine does extremely well. So, how does the Cadillac DPI VR drive in AMS2? Well, I've got pretty good news. This is one of the best cars in sim racing, and I say that especially after my last video where I kind of took the Volkswagen Virtus out behind the shed. This is the polar opposite. The Madness engine is no more or less simcade than any other racing sim engine on the market. It all matters what developers do in the tire file. For whatever reason, they got the Volkswagen Virtus street tires completely wrong. They got everything about that car wrong. This, however, is a night and day difference. It's got a nice kick on the power, it's nice and lively, you can feel the aero taking over at higher speeds, and it's possible to overdrive the front tires. I could drive this car all day. Even on the default setup, which we mandated the use of the default setup on the server. There's a fixed setup option from the server host side, so I haven't even made any adjustments to it. No brake bias, no steering box changes, absolutely nothing. It's awesome. But physics are only one part of the package. You'll see on the left here I pass by some weird shadow artifacts that are stationary on the track. There's another one coming up on the right here, I'll point it out. Right there. That's been an issue since Project Cars 2. It's disappointing that Reza didn't find any sort of way to fix it. I'm not a fan of, especially because in sim racing, the same engines are used over and over and over again across many different products and many different dev teams. It sucks to see long-standing issues like that pop up in game after game. It makes it look like these various dev teams really do just buy the rights to an engine, slap in their own physics, like their own tire files, their own car data, their own car models, their own track models, and then just call it a day. Obviously, that kind of project approach is pretty common in sim racing. I mean, let's be honest, ISI Motor has powered the majority of these games for the past 15 to 20 years, but come on, just have a little bit extra TLC. Now, you're probably wondering where Ted is. Ted smacked the wall in lap 2, and I think forced elbow, which is easy to do in these cars. You come barreling into the downhill left-hander, and if you miss the braking points, it gets knocked off the wall pretty quickly. Other guys, such as the car we just flew by there, got involved in incidents with the AI because the AI is a bit chaotic. And this is interesting right in front of me. Take a look at this. The other DPI car that was involved in that opening lap / opening sector wreck with the P1 car, I guess went to the pits and tried to repair the damage. And now his car is floating off the ground and missing 2 right side tires. Not only that, but when we tried to sneak by the AI GT car there, the AI car, or the fellow AI car, gave him no room, and they awkwardly slid together. And things are just getting worse. The steering on the AI car in front of me is now locked permanently to the left, so I can't really predict where he's going to go on the track. Not only that, he should have a blue flag and be yielding to me. He's not, so this car's 2 or 3 laps down, and is just borked visually. It's floating off the ground, it's missing tires, and it's not even respecting the overall leader of the race, so I'm just this isn't cool, you know? You can also probably notice that, like, his cornering ability and his braking ability is just completely different to mine. Even though we're only running at, like, 70 AI strength, he's going through some corners and he's just, like, rocketing away from me, which is really bizarre to watch. Some of this may be explained by the fact that I'm just a client on this server. This isn't me hosting it, this is some other guy. But this is really sloppy and just weird to see. And this is also the kind of stuff that got PCARS 1 review bombed back in the day, when it first came out in 2015. As well as PCARS 2, whenever people discovered glitches like this, it would go viral and, you know, kind of let Reddit dunk on it a bit, saying, oh, like, I'm not buying this game, I'm sticking with Assetto Corsa because SMS, you know, can't make a game without weird glitches like this. I don't know why Automobilista 2 hasn't received the same level of scrutiny. Again, when I go on Reddit and see people talk about this game in various threads saying, should you buy it or not, they say how highly underrated the game is. They say how you should definitely pick it up, especially for a Black Friday sale, and everything I've seen out my windshield is just PCARS 2. Like 100% PCARS 2 with slightly different cars, different tracks, and an objectively better set of tires for the majority of the cars. But honestly, like, the more you play PCARS 2 and the more you get used to driving it, it's really not as foreign as a lot of people on, like, Reddit and other racing sim discussion platforms make it out to be. Anyway, skipping ahead to 3 minutes left in the race, I'm really not challenged, but again, we're all just feeling out the sim. And we come up on another issue here. Pay attention to some of the cars I pass. The Corvette in front of me is crab walking, with the steering, again, locked to the left-hand side. That looks really, really ugly. A few more cars in front of me are going to do it. This Corvette's crabbing. You can see the nose is pointed kind of outward towards the wall. That's not right. That's really weird. I don't know, like, maybe I have just a lower tolerance for bullshit and janky-looking sims, but, like, the more issues you run into playing these games, the less I feel inclined to do, like, offline races or blast through a game's career mode or a championship mode, or if it has one. So a lot of these games, like a lot of sims I have installed, I use purely for, like, league racing. I almost never touch the single-player aspect of it, because this stuff just gets on my nerves. And it might be different for some of you. Like, some of you guys watching might have a more open mind and just accept that these games are not very polished and have a lot of weird bugs that you have to just deal with. But, like, I'm sorry. I remember being, 12 years old playing NASCAR Thunder on my GameCube and thinking, like, wow, like, I cannot wait to see what racing games are going to look like, 20 years from now. And 18 years later, now that, I'm close to 30 years old, things have gotten objectively worse, and in some cases I am still playing NASCAR Thunder on Dolphin because, nobody ended up making anything better. Anyways, that is Ted in front of us. Ted got his car repaired, he's blasting around, just trying to finish out the race, understand how the pit menu options work, understand how to request a pit stop, because again, there is a feeling out phase with a lot of sims, learning how the buttons work, learning the in-car management systems. Not every game is the same. Some have just a menu you navigate with the D-pad. Other games like this one, you have to use the ICM toggle button and then flip through a bunch of menus. You can set pit stop presets. Oh man, Ted got loose there. Going to try and run him down after turn 1, which we'll be able to do. Throw in some cheeky little blocks because we can do that with each other. It's fun. That's kind of what it looks like when you have two guys who are extremely talented drivers just fuck with each other for the hell of it. This is when sim racing is fun. It's just a shame that up until this point I've had to deal with the typical Reza/sim racing, what I like to call the 7/10 sim racing experience, where most of the game is fine, most of the game's really enjoyable, but then you have like weird shit where like the menus don't show up properly, or there's like shadow artifacts on the track, or the AI like kill each other just a couple of turns into the race. Stuff like that just makes it really frustrating, but at least I'll be able to just battle on track with a buddy for the final lap or so. And Ted's actually doing a good job of holding me off. The P1 cars in this game, despite being the quicker car inside the GUI, especially like if you look on the standing screen, it'll place the P1 cars above the DPI because it believes it's the faster class. I'm actually the quicker car, so I'm able to run down Ted, especially here on the long straight. I think I've got 20 or 30 horsepower on him, so we're going to, again, just like we did the opening lap, tuck in his slipstream, get a huge run in 5th gear, hitting 280 before the crest, and we are going to take the fuck off. 2, 3, 4 car length lead on Ted. but I have been sandbagging and saving the tires a bit, so Ted is going to go for a monster dive bomb, and I'm cognizant enough to check in the mirror and let him do that, otherwise we both would have died, and that's going to be the race. Really simple way to feel out AMS2, quick little 25-minute sprint around Bathurst with a couple guys in a couple different classes. Impressions are, how do I say this, a lot better than the Volkswagen Virtus race I did the other night. The lighting at least worked this time. I didn't have that bad of a time dealing with the AI cars, but we had them set quite low just so they were bots on the track. Minimal menu issues this time. It was just missing some car names in the GUI before we clicked the race button, but everything else worked as it should. The one thing to note, I really didn't use a whole lot of tire here. If you look in the bottom left, there was really not a lot of tire heat I had to deal with. I've still got most of my tire life remaining, but that at least makes sense considering I'm on full racing slicks here. Anyways, that's a bit more reflective of just the average experience playing AMS2. You know, I would say 70% of the game is fine. It's probably worth buying if you enjoy any of the cars on this car roster. But there are just a lot of weird sim racing-ish gremlins that you'll have to deal with. Floating cars, weird GUI stuff, that sort of thing.